We've had some pretty big tier changes this month for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. UU Staple Iron Crown, which is number 4 in usage in the underused tier, is now in the OU tier. And Moltres jumped all the way up from the RU tier to the OU tier. But some of the biggest surprises are Pokemon like Breloom, Krookodile, and Deoxys Defense in the NU tier. And Raikou has fallen all the way down to the PU tier. This month's tier changes are insane, so let's talk about them. We have quite a bit to talk about today. We'll talk about the OU tier usage stats as well as all the drops and rises, and also in general just the usage stats for the entire month of June. If you do enjoy this type of content, let me know. Consider leaving a like, consider subscribing, and also this isn't going to be anything that's too like visually stimulating, so feel free to tab out, listen, give your thoughts down below on everything. And sorry this is so late, but I have been moving and we're finally all settled in. Still got a bunch of boxes to unpack, but let's get into this. So let's look at the OU tier usage stats first. Now, usage stats right this moment are based on 3 months usage. So it's not going to be just this last month, which is why it does show Torkoal still in the OU tier. As we see at the end of June, Torkoal is just barely hanging on to the OU tier. However, because it is based on 3 months usage, Torkoal did end up falling down to UU, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. In fact, one of the most interesting things about this stat is that we don't even see Iron Crown in the top 40. I might be blind, but I went up and down, up and down. So if it was based on June, Iron Crown would not have risen up to the OU tier. But that is obviously not the case, as we do have Crown rising up to OU. Why is Crown rising up to OU? First off, it's a great anti-lead for Pokemon like Glimmora and Ribombee. Specs, Terra Steel, Tachyon Cutter can deal with Pokemon like Golden Go on the switch-in with Rocks Up. It 2-shots it. Well, I guess it 4-shots it technically. And also Pokemon like Samurott, it can be really difficult to switch into. It's actually funny that Specs and Assault Vest sets are becoming more common than the booster energy setup sets that people tried to use with this mon to some success. But its natural resistance to Pokemon like Iron Valiance, Moonblast, also its ability to take on a hit from Darkrai because of the Assault Vest set or even just a Terra Steel set and knock it out. Plus Psychic Noise to stop recovery, making it a pseudo stall breaker, access to Volt Switch for momentum. Very solid mon, and I'm excited to use it like going forward. We'll talk about the Moltres in a second as well, but this is a big change for the UU tier. As you can see, this is number 4 in usage in UU, one of the best Latios switch-ins. Also could deal with Ogerpon as well, since it resists both its dual stab and doesn't take too much from superpower as well. Can naturally, with Assault Vest, Psychic Noise, which is really good. I've seen Terra fight too with Focus Blast to deal with Drill. I've seen Calm Mind variants as well, but I've also just mainly seen Specs and Assault Vest. Just a mon that can take on Torn while still keeping momentum, right? Obviously, Scizor can do the same thing, but it does have to worry about Heat Wave and Bleak Wind / Hurricane. Still do a lot of damage. So this is a really big loss for the UU tier. I know Latios is very happy about this. Same thing with Ogerpon. Probably one of my favorite rises to the OU tier is the rise of Moltres. Now, we've seen this before, Moltres being up in OU, but this is the first time I think it jumped up from RU to OU. I could be wrong about that. I know it was OU in previous months of Scarlet and Violet, but why is it OU now? People are using physically defensive with Roar to deal with Zamazenta. I can run Terra Fairy. Flame Body obviously is absolutely massive when it comes to this Pokemon. And then it also deals with Great Tusk naturally. Can Terra Fairy as well, but unless Great Tusk is running Head Smash, can't really deal with it. Naturally checks Golden Go. Even Dragon Dance, Dragonite has to worry about being Will-O-Wisp. Landorus just gets worn down, doesn't really run Stone Edge, Taunt, U-Turn, Earth, Power, or Earthquake. Stealth Rock is typically the set. And with Terra Fairy, it can even take on Ogerpon, and it's just a really frustrating mon to deal with. And Roar, especially with Rillaboom being on the rise, have allowed Moltres to just kind of thrive. So this is the standard set that people are running. Just Flamethrower, Roar. Because like you could run Scorching Sands and coverage, right? But there's no real point when you can just phase out the mon, and you combine this with hazards, whether you're stacking with Ogerpon, like Ogerpon Moltres is a very popular core, whether you're stacking spikes with Ogerpon or you have a Samurott Moltres is also obviously very good. So it's usually this, physically defensive. Nice mon, honestly. I really am enjoying the rise of Moltres again. It's so cool to see, you know, Gen 1 birds, Pokemon from so long ago rise up to the OU tier. I'm looking like at the current OU tier list as well, and I don't think I see any other Gen 1 mon currently anyway. Obviously Zapdos had its, you know, it was good there. And we see Skarmory from Gen 2. Dragonite, what am I even talking about? Dragonite's in top 10. Dragonite always the GOAT. But anyway, fantastic mon. Cool to see it rise up. In terms of it leaving the RU tier, I will say it wasn't in the top 10 usage, but it was still a good check to Bisharp, Mimikyu, Kid Will-O-Wisp, thank you, CDC. Kid Will-O-Wisp, mons like Cobalion. I think it being able to deal with Cobalion was pretty big because the Iron Defense Body Press sets, which was nice, and obviously just Will-O-Wisp in general. I'm sure Moltres had really good usage in RU because I think it's really good. Even offensive Moltres I think was solid too, even though Cyclizar is like #1 and that mon just spins and tanks hits forever. But yeah, Moltres being gone from RU would probably be Cobalion's like happiness if it didn't rise up to the UU tier. But I did skip Comfey. Let's talk a little about Comfey. So, Combine Comfey. I know people have been using like Terra Grass for the Giga Drains, which are boosted obviously by Triage and everything. I know I've seen Combine Terra Poison, which is Draining Kiss. I've also seen Combine Terra Ground to deal with Drill. But Terra Grass I think does that better. But just a good Lottie check. And this mon gets so much better with Iron Crown being gone. Honestly, and even Scissor's lack of recovery in this generation is pretty cool for Comfey. I like that mon. I think it's actually good in OU too, or at least it has a niche. Like it's not. I don't want to say good, but it's not terrible. I definitely got swept by it like last week, but it's also swept in tournament too, so it's not terrible. I think one of the most interesting things is the rise of Cobalion from RU to UU as well, and I know it's interesting that both Iron Crown and Cobalion were there. But I know people in tournament have been running Cobalion with like Rocky Helmet plus CC to tank the hit from Ogerpon, the superpower, and then knock it back out. I've seen Iron Defense Body Press. I've just seen a lot of taunt. I think that's a lot of what Cobalion does. It's a steel type that can still check low kicks with Rocky Helmet. That's a big one. Low kicks is #2. My favorite mon from Scarlet and Violet. I'm so happy that it is there. And oh shoot, do I have time to do timestamps today? Oh, we'll see. We'll see. If not, can someone do timestamps down below for me and I'll pin it and everything? I appreciate it. But if that might not have to be the case, I might be able to do it. But good check to that. Good check to Scizor, you turning around, bullet punching and whatnot. And it's a rocker that's faster than Drill that can threaten Drill, plus also stop Drill from setting up rocks to stop via taunt, but in close combat, which is a big thing about Cobalion. Very massive loss, I think, for the RU tier. They don't have to worry. First off, Bisharp gets a lot better. But also, they don't have to. It's one of the better Cyclizar checks. Can Iron Defense Body Press Terra Ghosts and be a massive pain. So, pretty big loss for the RU tier. But let's talk about NU. NU has lost Rhyperior, which I think is really, really, really cool. And Rhyperior ends up rising up to the UU tier. Now, what is Rhyperior's role in the UU tier? I mean, it's pretty simple. It's just a rock ground that can check low kicks. It's also one of the best Zapdos answers in the game, and Zapdos is #5 in usage. It gets a lot better now that Iron Crown's gone. Can check Tornadus, though it does have to worry about Tornadus knocking it off and you turning out, because it will eventually be worn down in that regard. But it's also a check to Tyranitar. It also scares out Pecharunt and Skeleturge, or forces them to commit to Terastallization. Pretty big rise, I would say, from that. But in terms of NU, Rhyperior was good, but it wasn't nowhere near top 10. However, the other changes we're about to talk about, insane for the tier. Let me move this over slightly so y'all can just see exactly what I'm talking about. So I played a lot of NU with my boy Rabia, and we'll be playing some NU soon, hopefully this week. We haven't had as many collabs because I've just been super busy with the moving, and you know, Mega Style Ladder was going on, so the time I had to do videos for Blender too. So NU to RU, look at that. #3 in usage, #4 in usage, #7 in usage. All absolutely gone. Not to mention, Noivern was probably one of the better defoggers next to Talonflame, obviously behind Talonflame. Talonflame, #1 defogger. Thundurus, both pivot sets with Volt Switch, spec sets, scarf sets even, and just boots nasty plot. Extremely good. And Reuniclus was probably one of the cornerstones of Assault Vests in this tier. Just being able to tank multiple hits, getting up future sights, going for psychic noises, going for knockoff on opposing Reuniclus. NU has just been flipped like completely. Slowbro was the best, one of the best win cons. Calm Mind, Psychic Noise, Scald, beautiful. Beautiful. You ran Terra Fairy sometimes. Crook, the #3. It was a staple rocker, a staple lead, a staple choice scarf mon. It could use Terra Poison, Gunk Shot, Scarf, Magnezone. The Iron Defense Body Press sets were obviously amazing, but also just Specs was really, really, really good. I mean, you see who's in the top tier of this. Like, nothing wants to switch into Magnezone. So Magnezone being gone would also make Thundurus better because you don't have to click Focus Blast, but it's crazy. It would make Slowbro better if they didn't pull up to the RU tier. I find it funny that RU took Noivern because there was a lack of hazard control in the RU tier, besides obviously Cyclizar being like #1. So I find it very funny that RU took that. Slowbro going back to RU, Crook, Thundurus, insane changes, like actually huge changes for NU. I'm very excited for the brand new NU tier. I do want to know your guys' thoughts, so please let me know down below. It's just wild to see so much from top 10 be picked off. And keep in mind, like I said, this is 3 months of usage worth, not just last month's usage. So we don't really know what it would have been last month. Maybe some of this stuff wouldn't have gone up, but it's crazy that even with Thundurus going, Raikou still isn't very good. However, it might be better in this tier now that, well, we'll talk about what Raikou found a PU, crazy. But it might actually be better in this tier with both Zone, Crook, and more importantly, I think Assault Vest Reuniclus being gone. So talk a little bit about that. I know Incineroar is having a field day now in this tier because it doesn't have to worry about losing to Slowbro, even if it doesn't Terrasilize. And then from ZU to PU, the #6 and the #4 in usage, another huge change for the ZU tier. I couldn't really tell you why because I haven't played a lot of ZU as of late. I will say, like, looking through this entire list, isn't it wild? Like, you used to see Pokemon, you used to see little babies right here on ZU and PU, but not Kingdra, #1 in ZU. Kingdra, what are you doing, fam? Hisuian Electro. This looks like an actual RU tier, like legitimately. All those mons have been viable in NU, RU. Shoot, some of them in OU. Hello, Kingdra. At points, Snorlax, Jolteon at points in their since they've been made. But anyway, Hoopa being gone, the bird being gone is really, really big. I like Hoopa's specs. I know Assault Vest was pretty decent too, but I think specs and Scarf were good in the tier. I know the bird is a great rocker, just good knockoff, good heavy duty parting shots, could do things like that. So I'm excited to try. Like, all these tiers just look very fun to me. But let's talk a little about the drops. From OU to UU, we have Ribombee. I think the Iron Crown rise, I think Webs being not as consistent of, I mean, they're fun to show off mon. I will admit Webs are very fun to show off mons, but they're not necessarily the best in terms of consistency in tournament. I know that much. Like, if you're going to run offense, most of your offensive mons are going to be booster energy mons, setup mons that don't really care too much about that. You might even have a Serp too on them. It's funny because Serperior ends up falling from OU to UU, and Serperior actually had a really good month in terms of World Cup. I'm pretty sure Serperior went at least neutral in World Cup in terms of wins and losses, so it's interesting to see it fall off, especially because people have been using Leaf Storm, Terra Ghost, which with Glare, which allows you to, and Terra Blast, and that allows you to deal with like a Pult. That allows, it's just good neutral in general when it comes to the OU tier. It also, more importantly, allows you to deal with Golden Go, but also Blissey. Like, you can stall out Blissey when it comes to it. So seeing that mon fall down to UU is really, really interesting, especially with like Crown being gone. Serp has such a good speed tier in the UU tier. UU is feeling like Oras, man. You got Gren, you got Serp, you got Zapdos, Latios, Torn, Scizor. So it's really interesting too because Drill, even though like actually all these past OU mons, but the fact that Crown is gone is really big. Crown could naturally just check it. Torn can check it, but once Torn's paralyzed, it's damn near out versus that mon. Whereas Crown still has like Tachyon Cutter for a substitute variant. Torn has to hit Bleak Wind through para or break through and go U-turn if it terras. If Serperior terras and doesn't beat it anyway. But Serp being faster than both Latios and Ogerpon, I think is a huge thing. We might even see some Terra Electric Serps, which like Dragon Pulse and just Leaf Storm Spam. We could see some Terra Fire, even Terra Water. Anything Rock can work too. Deal with Zap, deal with Torn. Just big mon for the tier. I think it's going to be super solid. I'm excited to try it out. UU also getting Sun is really, really interesting too, because if we look at the current UU tier, let's see what they have to abuse this Sun. I'm pretty sure Hisuian Arcanine, anything interesting. Sandy Shock is pretty cool. Let's see things with photosynthesis allowed down here. So obviously, I mean, I don't think photosynthesis would be as good, but if we look at Chlorophyll, Venusaur obviously is one of the better ones. Hisuian Lilligant as well, I think would be really cool when it comes to this. You can obviously get away with some Scoville and Shift Tree stuff too. But that's going to be one of the interesting changes. I don't know how much... is Manual Sun going to be overpowering? Because when I look at this tier, right, there's so many mons that just naturally check Sun mons in UU. So if you look at this, Tornadus is a natural check to Sun mons because it can naturally tank Venusaur Sludge Bombs +2. Weather Ball, Terra Fire. Venusaur, though, will be a problem. But Latios, another natural check. Zapdos is something that Torkoal doesn't like, and then Pokemon don't like switching into, and Heat Wave boosted. Things like that. You have Low Kicks at number 2. So Low Kicks has that first impression. Scizor down there too. Assault Vest Hydrapple. Ogerpon keeps sturdy. So I'm not sure how broken Sun is going to be initially, but of course I could be way off. And if you play UU or want to give your thoughts on that, I would love that. But just initially, it doesn't seem like the most busted thing. I also think Sun is still really good in OU, so we might just see Torkoal rise back up naturally. It has been used in tournaments still, and its Gouging Fire is still really good. Walking Wake still really good. And you know they're going to be missing their partner who's falling down to the UU tier. So they're definitely going to see usage. Again, remember, this is based on 3 months, not just the recent one. If it was only based on June, Torkoal would still be in the OU tier. I think the drops from UU are so good for the RU tier. Let's skip Hisuian Goodra for a second and talk a little bit about Weezing. So Weezing dropped. I mean, yeah, it's one of the better low kicks checks. You get the Rocky Helmet, but I'd rather use Cobalion that can get the Rocky Helmet chip and still threaten Drill and still set up rocks for me, right? Like Weezing in a metagame versus Drill versus Zapdos, which doesn't really touch. Even Latios doesn't care about it. Like, it just too much damage, So it falls down to RU, but pretty good for RU. Why? Defog. Now, obviously, you had Cleavor, and of course, you had the Noivern that just rose up. But it having Defog for the tier, Cyclizar doesn't have to be on every single team, even though it's on 33% of teams. It doesn't have to be on every single team. So it gives you a nice little defogger, gives you a check to mimic you, something that doesn't care about Powdonk and Will-O-Wisp type of thing. A check to Cleavor. I say that one loosely because you're taking rocks plus 33% from Stone Axe and stuff like that. Depending on if you're running Neutralizing Gas versus Levitate. I feel like Levitate is good, obviously, but Neutralizing Gas can obviously work with Heavy Duty Boots. But I really like Levitate, be able to check things like Hippowdon, stuff like that. But I really like this mon for the tier. I like just the additional defog. I know RU is very happy about that. I like Goodra too, to be honest. I think AV or Mixed or even Specs seems pretty cool when you look at the RU tier. Let's look at the RU tier and let's look at Hisuian Goodra. Yeah, Goodra just couldn't handle it. And like if I'm gonna use a Steel type, I'm using Crown, I'm using Excadrill, even Cobalion in UU. But in this tier, obviously, a natural... This is UU. Obviously, offensively, it's a natural check to Rain. A check to Basket Legion Girl right here. So it can definitely check that. And also just has the Draco's a Speed tier as well. Nice little Gengar answer. Nice little Gardevoir answer to this tier. So I think it's a decent addition to the tier. A Thunderous check as well. I love RU, man. RU is such a cool tier. Every tier looks so cool, man. I hope y'all start playing them on Showdown so I can find some battles when I be loading up. But Nice for the tier in general. I enjoy what it can do. It can do the assault vest role like Cyclizar, but Cyclizar does it better if it's running heavy duty boots or assault vest, just because it has regenerator. But I think offensively, I am a big fan of Goodra in this tier. Just clicking buttons, just rip it Dracos because it's strong. Base 110 special attack is pretty strong. And in terms of dragon types in this tier, Cyclizar is not really known for its offensive power. And same thing with like Noivern is good, but Noivern is weaker as well. It also has, I mean, you could argue Dragon Flying and Dragon Steel are both very, very, very good dual stats. I mean, they are both dual stats. I was trying to say you could argue which one's better or worse. It's kind of hard because, right, like Flying Stab is always great, especially when you pair it with Dragon, which has good coverage overall, right? The only thing that resists that is Steel. And then you have Dragon as a type in baseline. Then you have Dragon and Steel, which same thing, Steel, right? But then you have to look at their coverage. They both have fire moves here, right? But also Goodra, more importantly, can deal with the Fairy type without having to risk a 70% accurate move. So I really like that as well. I like Goodra. Nice little Volcanion check too for the tier. I like Goodra a lot in this tier. From UU to NU, Psychic Terrain has basically ended its terrain, or it's just not great anymore in UU. And I mean, it makes sense, right? You got to deal with the drills. You got to deal with the Greninja, which is a dark type. There's a lot of good dark types in this tier. A lot of good dark types. So because Indeedee had risen up from NU to UU, it falls right back down to the NU tier. Now, what can it do in the NU tier? Let's look at size spam and see how good it is. I do think Choice Scarf or Choice Specs is good, especially to weaken something like Incineroar for some of those other mons we'll be talking about from RE to NU in a second, which I'm very, very, very excited about. But there's no Armarouge because Armarouge is indeed RU, unfortunately. So you cannot run your standard size spam. Looking for things that you would run on size spam here. Chinchino could be your your tidy up guy, so that would be your mouse hold. And from there's not a lot. There's not a lot of your standard size spam Sinistcha stuff. Like you got Espeon, but there's not a lot of your standard size spam. So I don't know if it's really worth building a team around it like it was before. However, I do think Choice Scarf, especially because I've used it on the other Indeedee in this tier, and Choice Specs all sound really decent. Calm Mind variants too, to also just stop Mach Punch from Breloom and just do massive damage to Incineroar. Like I said, I think Incineroar is the big one because you want to weaken Incineroar, because let's talk about some of the drops. Let's skip a few of them. Let's talk about Deoxys defense in the NU tier. What the hell? From Uber to never used. It's really interesting to think that a spiker could be bad, but the introduction of boots, also the offensive spikes from Pokemon like Samurai and higher tiers, and just like power in general, like how it is, like, yeah, Dio is always solid, but typically it gets up hazards and then you have like broken mons behind it, right? But like, you know, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that with this mon. You don't. You got Samurai clicking it. And in UU, if we look at the actual UU tier itself, this hazard control is actually really good. Drill is amazing. Donphan's still fine as well. You got Mandy too. There's a plethora of ghosts, just off like everything. Man, this mon just. I also think like the 8 PP recover really, really, really hurts this mon. That's not to say it won't be nasty in the tier we're playing in, because I actually think the Cosmic Power, Psychic Noise, Nightshade recover set, and you can run Terra Steel or Terra Poison, is really cool. And this can even 1v1 things like the Cresselia, which is falling down the tier. But the idea is you boost so much with Cosmic Power to the point where things cannot knock you out anyway. You Terra Poison or Steel to avoid Toxic, and then you Psychic Noise the setup mons, or the mons with recovery so they can't recover, and then you go for Nightshade, 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 Psychic Noise every other turn so they can't recover, and wear them down. Of course, Cosmic Power Store Power sets can be good. I think Spike sets with Taunt can be really good too. And this is a big thing why I was talking about Incineroar, right? As long as you deal with Incineroar, even if Incineroar comes right in on Deoxys and takes a Nightshade, that's 100 out of Incineroar's 394 HP, right? That dude can only do that 2 more times before it's risking getting KO'd. Not to mention you can pair it with knockoff users too, and also not to mention Dio can knock off Incineroar's boots as well. Like, you can literally do this. This can literally be a set. Incineroar comes in, knock it off. Rocks being up, good. You don't got to worry about it. It tears versus something, cool. You can Psychic Noise, not that it had recovery anyway. And you can Night Shade every single time. So Dio could do this. It can do some Spikes, Taunt stuff. When it comes to this Mon, obviously, I wish they didn't get rid of Toxic Spikes on this guy. That'd be really cool. But Dio's going to be an insane addition to the tier. I think Crest is kind of similar, right? The Calm Mind, Store Power sets with Moonblast, and then you do the Moonlight, and then you literally do Terra Poison with Levitate because you don't give a damn about that, or Terra Steel with Levitate. But I like Terra Poison a little bit more just because you're not weak to Incineroar's Flare Blitz when it comes to this tier, which is big. Also, this not having to worry about Psychic Noise, Slowbro, and Reuniclus because they have risen up to the RU tier is super big for this Pokemon. Not to mention, you could just run Rocky Helmet defensive sets and just use it as pivots into Flygon and stuff. One of the best Flygon checks in the game. Doesn't have to worry about that. And speaking of Flygon, the number one Mon in the RU tier, or in the NU tier rather. So you could pivot into that. Can check Galay, can check Mian Shao. It's knocked off. Can check Dog. Though SD Terra Dark Crunch will leave Cresselia dead. But yeah, 2 big Psychics for the tier, and I am a fan. I am a big fan. All right, so we have the Breloom. Woof! Woof! Breloom, my God, how have you fallen down here? Obviously, Mach Punch, Close Combat, Bullet Seed, and you probably have to run Rock Tomb on this thing. Just because it can deal with the Talonflame coming in. It's just strong. It's strong, right? Terra Rock can allow you to live like Brave Birds or Flamethrowers from Talonflame too. I've seen Rabia use this. I think Focus Sash League could be cool. We can't Spore, which is big. You obviously cannot Spore. But in the NU tier, I think there's a few other things that you can try with this Mon, like Terra Poison Gunk Shot, which is a really, really, really strong, right? You land on that, like Mons like Vileplume are getting 2-shot easily. But I just think like it also getting Close Combat and stuff this gen, like it's so good. It's just crazy to think of this Pokemon. Rock Tomb obviously Technician boosted. It's just crazy to think of this Mon in this tier. The fact that Noivern's gone and Thundurus as well, 2 offensive checks to its stab, even though Bandit Bullet Seed probably does like, if I get 5 hits, Thundurus probably damn near dies to that. It's just so good for this Pokemon, man. It's so good. And Mach Punch having that priority. So I'm very excited about Breloom. I don't know how long these Mons are going to last, but if I know my boy Rabia, it's a week until Pokemon get banned, or the weekend. And it's the 4th right now. Happy 4th. But, and this tier change happened on Monday. So I probably have 3 more days to record with them. And I'm going to hit them up. And we're going to do a recording and do some things before they go. I like Araquanid. I do. Now, I'll be honest. I think with Crook gone, Noivern gone, I think that Galvantula was already a great Sticky Webber, right? It is a very good Sticky Webber. Not only is it fast, Thunder Wave can lunge and do and Terra Ghost as well to block Rapid Spin from Serena and also threaten offensively. Its speed tier is just good. Its speed tier is just very good. In the NU tier, you have a Pokemon like Flygon and Feraligatr and Gallade, and you only have Pokemon like Espeon faster than you, and Noivern, which is gone now, and Talonflame, which you threaten with your Thunder. It's just so, it's good. It's a very, very good Mon. So it's interesting to see Araquanid. I don't know, maybe, I think the difference that Araquanid has versus Galvantula is that Araquanid gets away with not being a Focus Sash lead a little bit more, just because of its natural special defensive bulk. So you can easily just run your standard. It's literally just Araquanid, right? Doesn't matter about the last move. Infestation if you want, lunge, whatever, lower their attack. I don't think the last move matters at all on this Pokemon. But you don't have to run it Focus Sash. You can run it like this with Boots. And Galvantula can do the exact same thing, but I think it's just a little bit easier for Araquanid too because it also resists fire due to its water bubble ability. And obviously Liquidation is super, 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 super good in this tier. Maybe you even run like Surf. Dude, I don't know. Bulk up Talonflame. No, I don't think you need that. Miracle can work too. But yeah, it's gonna be a good Mon. Overall, I don't think it's gonna be a great Mon. I think that Galvantula is still, in terms of Sticky Webber, just better. Just its speed tier just makes a big difference in the hit. But I'm still excited to try it out. And of course, Cinccino. I love this mon too. I think that just the tail slap stuff, you can use Technician with loaded dice, which I think is fine, right? You get the triple axle, you get the tail slap. Can you give Ambipom his stuff back, bro? Like, I think the big one is gonna be like Terra Grass, Bullet Seeds, setup. It's really powerful, man. And you don't have to worry about tail slap missing. And obviously, you also have triple axle, knock out Serena, tidy up, just standard. But I like Terra Grass a lot. I think Terra Ghost can be good too. Be immune to Breloom's Mach Punch. I don't know how long Breloom's in the tier. I think even Terra Normal. I honestly think you can get away with Terra Normal in this tier too. But or even Terra Ice Triple Axle just for the strong hit on the Vileplume or something like that. You could also run. You could just run Skill Link and then run Protective Pads, so you don't have to worry about Talonflame. Of course, you do have Rock Blast, but you don't have to worry about Talonflame when you go for Tail Slap. You don't have to worry about Flame Body. You don't have to worry about Effect Spore from Vileplume, Rocky Helmets. So this is definitely an option from this too. I love this Pokemon a lot. I've always been a big fan of this Pokemon. I thought it was so cool, and I'm happy that it's a lot better now. Because before I was using things like Wake Up Slap on this one, like legitimately. I remember I might have some videos on that too, but. Big fan of this mon. Very excited to see it in this tier. I think even as a lead, it's very oppressive into Hyper Offense because it does knock out Galvantula in one hit. It does knock out Sash Breloom in one hit and can run Terra Ghost itself. It does knock out Sash Arachnid in one hit. So it's really cool anti-offense mon, and I'm excited to see it work. No Magnezone in the tier is big. No Slowbro. No Prankster T-Wave from Thundurus, no Scarf Krookodile to Revenge Kill. So very, very excited about this mon. Now from NU to PU, I think it's wild that Copperajah. This is good for NU, for PU. Another support steal, right? Very, very good. Copper is interesting in this tier. Like it's not like bad at all. It sucks to see it fall because I think Copper was actually still fine. In the tier, we used a lot of it, especially as a nice little special check. A nice little Deoxys check, nice little rain check too. You just Terra Dragon, you can check Sun as well, Venusaur, in the NU tier specifically. So, but I do think PU probably needs a better look at that. Not even a steal in top 10. What y'all doing? So Florges, watch out. Slowbro, watch out though. You kind of beat it. Even Toxtricity, like we were using special defensive to deal with that too. Barely, but it does. It does. But Copper is really cool. And you kind of just, I mean, look at the tier, right? They nerfed Copper as well. Like they got rid of some of its moves. So it can't actually go for, like, they got rid of Power Whip, which was really dumb. By the way, they gave it knockoff, which is nice, but they got rid of Power Whip, which I think is really dumb. There was a lot of bulky waters that I would obviously prefer that for. But I like it in PU. I'm excited. I think Raikou needs to be studied because the fall off of that mon is just something that like scientists are failing to understand. But luckily, you got a pokeaimMD right here to tell you exactly why Raikou is garbage. Now, let me tell you why Raikou is garbage. I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. That boy had to do. Look at NU. All right, look at NU. First off, best mon, Flygon, right? So unless you're running Terra Blast, Ice and Catch It, or you Scald Burn it with your 30%, you're not doing much. That's best mon, right? Best mon, Flygon. Secondly, it struggled to deal with Deoxys, which was amazing, Dragalge, but also the fact that like Calm Mind sets didn't have the coverage for those sets that run like those pert balances. You would have to run Terra Blast Grass or Scald Burn them. It's a mon that super relied on its Terra, obviously, and when Jolteon was reigning supreme in the NU tier, very similar. But the difference is that Jolteon is faster than Talonflame, right? Jolteon was faster than Noivern. So like it wasn't constantly getting chipped by U-turn, worn down. You have to run boots to avoid the spikes in this tier too, which Keys can do. Gallade can easily live a +1 hit. It's just like it's not if you're going to use an electric type in this tier, you're using Galvantula to set up webs. That's just it. Electrics are not at the best point because there's too much priority and there's not enough. Besides Thundurus, right? Besides Thundurus. Thundurus is different. Thundurus has the initial nasty plot to do damage, but also Thundurus has Grass Knot, right? Thundurus has Focus Blast. So obviously Raikou has like Aura Sphere and Scald. Cool, but those are babies compared to Grass Knot 120 base power depending on the ground or Focus Blast, you know, 120 70% of the time. So it's just like it might have been slower, but it had the initial power. Also, it could get away with clicking U-turn, could taunt. So like it was just losing out on that. It's just not. I don't think it's by any means a bad Pokemon. And a Pokemon's tiering, you know, you don't, you shouldn't marry a tier when it comes to that, right? Who cares, right? Raikou fall on the PU. You can still use an OU if you want to, but its inability. And Sun was good in this tier. Serena, Terra Dragon didn't care. Sometimes ran Lumberry. That bro, it wasn't even beating. It wasn't even beating a freaking Tentacruel in one. It just got Toxic back. Like it's just, I just think the tier is too much for Raikou. I think if you predict perfectly with Specs Raikou, you could obviously do anything. But I mean, at the same time, also, why would I use Specs Raikou when I could use Magnezone, which is slower or was slower, but its dual stab was just greater. And like, I don't have to be forced to click a non-stab Scald, right? At least Magnezone can click Flash Cannon, and Magnezone can also run Terra Blast Grass for to just allow it to switch in on Mons like Rhyperior and Swampert, but also knock them out. But also still have its strong Flash Cannon, Volt Switch, and Thunderbolt, right? Could run Analytic too. Didn't have to run Steel Trapping. Could run Analytic. So it's just a big. It just wasn't powerful enough. It couldn't boost enough, and it was hard. It's an Electro type that you don't get. Thank you. I love Seaman. Sorry. People just be sending me random stuff while I'm doing it. So I have all my monitors open up on the side, so I just rewatching it. But yeah, in terms of PU though, I know it was voted on to be quick banned or not, and it was voted to not be quick banned. So I am hoping that the Mon can exist. I'll be real though. A lot of those Mons in the PU tier were NU and Raikou was being used at times. Right? Or at least like have it been experienced in NU tier, like Florius, Slowbro, etc. People using Tox, right? People use Arcanine too. I mean, I know Ravia and I fought a lot of them. Raptor too. So it's interesting. Will it be banned? Will it be too good? We'll find out. I think Subcom Mind can do something with it for sure. I just think Florius beats it 1v1 though. Specs might be like the better one when it comes to the PU tier. Let's look at the ground types in PU real quick. See if that gives us anything to work with. So let's do ground. Wow, am I just missing everything on my keyboard? Holy crap. All right. That's the best damn Raikou check I ever seen. Nah, but it could obviously Terra Grass, which is probably something I'll do since Gastrodon most likely used a bit. But you also have like other ones like Decidueye grass types that can deal with it, right? So let's look at grass. Not grass ground. Give me grass. NPU. Decidueye, whoa, channel, crap, Rotom. Yeah, I don't know. And even further, you can pick from Abomasnow and things like that. So, I don't know. Let's see if it's initially broken or not. I'm very excited. It does have Shadow Ball access, so like maybe it'll be too much for this tier. Why not? I could definitely see some Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, or even just forgo that, go Volt Switch, or some Scald type thing. You can even run. Actually, Combine Terra Blast. Common like Terra Ghost might actually be viable. Hit Decidueye. You still want to worry about Shadow Sneak from it though. And from PU to ZU, which is really interesting to see by the way, because we've been swept by this very recently. We got Whimsicott and Grafaiai. Now, where are these Mons banned? Let's look a little bit of the Whimsicott. I do not see any fairies besides Alcremie up here. So it's a nice natural check to Electrode. Nice natural check to Kingdra. So that's pretty cool. You can do some Encore shenanigans from that. Nice natural check to Bird. Does have to worry about Bird a little bit though, because obviously the Brave Bird could come out. But I like that. In terms of Grafaiai though, you can do some thwacky stuff. You can definitely do some thwacky stuff with Terrain, Arboliva as well. Freaking love that Mon. With Terrain, so maybe it will be a little bit too much in this tier for them. Anything else? Yo, it actually looks Wait, was I even looking at? That was Z. That was PU. I was looking at, right? No, that was Z. That was Z. Bro, the ZU tier's so wild. Oh, Indeedee's right there. Oh, shoot. Okay. Terrain can definitely be good then. Oh, yeah. Psychic Seed. SD. Smells nasty. I'm excited about that. That sounds really good. God, ZU has so many mons. Damn, it just keeps going. Anyway, nice little quicker tier changes video. Very excited about some of these. Definitely going to be doing some videos on these. What are you guys' thoughts? Let me know down below. Leave a like, sub. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.